Hello and welcome to our third session in this architectural project, and in this session we are going to start building the pillars for our construction. Actually, if you are continuing from the previous session, you can directly open the project and start working on it, or else if you want the previous version files, then you can use our Patreon page. If you come into the YouTube description or in the LMS description, you are going to see a Patreon link here, and when I click on this link, this is going to open the Patreon page, and if you scroll down, you have apartment_set2.zip file. Click on this to download the file. Now, once the file is downloaded, right click and choose extract all and click on the extract button here. Once the file is extracted, I will come back to downloads and I will select this apartment_set2 folder, right click, cut or copy it from here, and I am going to come into the D Unreal Projects folder. I am going to right click here and choose paste. Now, once it is pasted, I will now come into the Epic Games launcher, double click to launch the Epic Games launcher, then come into Unreal Engine library, and now you can see this apartment_set2, double click to open this. Now, once the project opens, come into your content drawer, and in your maps folder you have this apartment_1, double click to open this. In our previous session we had put up this floor and this beautiful compound and also the gate. Now, to continue for the next level, I am going to go to file, save current level as, and in the same folder I am going to give it the name as apartment_02_with_pillars, and I am going to save this. We are going to start constructing our building, and this construction starts first by putting up the pillars. Now, in the downloaded house plan_images folder, you have all the drawings. I will come to this stilt floor plan. You can see these black rectangles, they represents the pillar of our building. And if you see here, we have 4 pillar here, 4 pillar here, 8, then 12, 16, and 17 and 18 pillars are placed here. We are going to first know the size of each pillar. Now, the size of our pillar is 1 feet by 2 feet. And now, the next thing I want to know is the height of my pillar. See, if you come into this foundation suit soil condition, you have the length of the pillar from here to here. You have 2.4 meters. Then first floor is 3 meters. So, 3 plus 2.4, it is 5.4 meters, plus 3 is 8.4 meters, plus 3 is 11.4 meters, and for that 11.4 meters, if I add 0.75, it will be 12.15 meters. I will come into the modeling mode. In create, I will click on the box, and in output type I will choose dynamic mesh. I will just type here 60.96, and depth is 1 feet, 30.48, and height is 12.15 meter, which is nothing but 1215 centimeter. I will keep the pivot location to base, and with that, if I come here and if I just click, you can see our first pillar is ready. I will click here, accept. I will just come here, press F2, and I am going to call this as SM_pillar1. Next, I have to place it at the right location. You can see my very first pillar is placed 1 meter from the left of my site area and 2.2 meter from the down. I am going to come into the top view, and now I am going to first select this pillar, and I will just move it to the corner over here. If you come into the drawing, the very first pillar is vertical. I will come into Unreal Engine. I will first rotate it by 90 degree, and then I am going to just drag it and place it exactly aligning it compound pillar. I will come into my snapping and I will disable location snapping, and now I will just drag it and place it precisely to this end. Now, I have to move it along the y axis by 1 meter. 1 meter is nothing but 100 centimeter. So, along the y axis I am going to come here and I am going to minus this by 100 and press enter. I have to move it along the x-axis by 2.2 meters, which is nothing but 220 centimeter. I will come into the x-axis and I am going to type minus 220 and press enter. And now, since all these pillars will be the same, I will select this SM underscore pillar 1 and I am going to come here into XForm and I am going to convert this into a static mesh and click apply. I will come into my content drawer and in content maps generated Satvik. Now you can see this pillar here. I am going to right click and I am going to rename this as SM underscore pillar. I will come back into this viewport and I am now going to press Alt and I am going to drag to make a copy of this. Now I am going to again bring this over here to the right hand compound pillar. I have aligned with it. I am now going to actually move it along the y axis. I will come here and I will move it by plus 100 now, and if I zoom out, see it has moved by 100, and along the x axis I am going to move it by minus 220. I will select the first pillar, its x value is 663.7. I will just copy the x value of my pillar 1, come into my second pillar and I am going to paste it. So, if x value of both are same, then they both will be at the same level. Now, next I have to add two more pillars here equidistantly placed between these two pillars, and for this, instead of doing all the calculation, I will select this SM underscore pillar 2. First I will press F2 and I will call this as pillar 4, and then I am now going to come into this pattern tool. Right now the direction is set to x axis. I will change it to y axis and I will disable this centered, and in the count I am going to give it number of count 4, so that I have 4 pillars, and then in the distance I am going to just zoom it in, and zooming it in I will just hold this and drag it and align it exactly over my first pillar here. This is around 988.5, it is showing the distance. If you scroll down, I am going to enable this option separate actors and I am going to click accept. We have got 4 pillars here. Actually here one is pattern underscore 00. This is not required for me because this pillar is already present. I will delete it, and pattern underscore 03 is not required. I will delete it. Select this second one and I am going to press F2 and I am going to call this as SM underscore pillar 2, and this will be, I will press F2, I will call this as SM underscore pillar 3, and finally we have this SM underscore pillar 4. So, we have all the 4 pillars now. If you come into the drawing, you can see 2 pillars are placed horizontally. I am going to select the second pillar and I will set its rotation to 0, and 4th pillar I will set its rotation to 0. However, now they are not correctly aligned, you can see here. So, I will first select pillar 1 with shift press select 2, 3 and 4. Then I will come into align, and in align I am going to first choose bounding boxes. In an align I am going to choose first selected and I am going to choose the axis X, and in the box position I am going to select back. The back of these boxes are precisely aligned and I am going to click accept. I have another 4 pillars here which are placed 5.5 meters above. With all the 4 selected, I will come into edit and I will duplicate it. Because of this rotation and pivot is not aligned correctly in all the 4, you are seeing multiple values in this red axis. I will select SM pillar 2, I will press F2 and now I am going to call this as pillar 5, and then I will come here and I am going to subtract this by 550 minus 550. I will press enter. Similarly, I will select the next pillar here, that is SM pillar 3. I will press F2 and I am going to call this as pillar 6, and I am going to now subtract minus 550 now. It moves here. Similarly, I will select the next pillar here, which is SM pillar 4. Press F2 and I am going to call this as SM pillar 07, and I am going to actually subtract its x value by minus 550, and similarly I will select the last pillar SM pillar 5, press F2 and I am going to rename this as SM underscore pillar 8, and coming into x axis I am going to subtract it by minus 550. So, now I have moved 4 pillars by 5.5 meters to the top. In this, all the 4 are vertically placed. Now, I will come back here and select this, and I am going to set its rotation to 90 degree, and also I will select this rotation to 90 degree. And when I set the rotation to 90 degree, now what happens? Again you have this alignment issue. So, I will select the first pillar, with shift select the second, third and fourth, and then I will come into align, and along the x axis in first align, I am now going to choose align it to the top, or even back is fine. Okay, so now it is aligned and I will click accept. Now, coming back to my drawing, we have 2 pillars that are placed here, and actually this pillar is not correctly aligned to this. There is a slight change. This correction we are going to do it later. However, only thing is, now I have to find out what is this distance. Now, here you can see that this distance is 3.8 meters. So, now I will come back here and I am going to select only these 2 pillars, and I am going to go into edit, duplicate, and I am now going to select this SM pillar 6 here, and I am going to now move it along the x axis. I will subtract this by minus 380. I will press F2 here and I am going to call this now as pillar 9, and then I will select this SM pillar 7, and this also I will subtract it by minus 380 and press enter, and I am going to press F2 and I am going to now call this as pillar 10. So, now we have successfully placed 10 pillars. Coming back to my stilt floor plan, I have another 4 pillars placed here. Actually, I have to now know the distance. Now, to identify this pillar location, see, now if I zoom here and if I have a look here, these 2 has a width of 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters, means this total length is 3 meters. I have to maintain a distance of 3 meters here, and this total length is 5.16 meter. So, in 5.16 meter, if I subtract 3 meter, it is 2.16 meter. So, now I have to move all these 4 by, this is 3.8 that we moved here, plus 2.16. I select all these 4 pillars now, and I am now going to come into edit. I will duplicate it, and I select this first pillar here, press F2, and I am going to call this as SM underscore pillar 11, and I am going to move it along the x axis by 3.8 plus 2.16, 5.96. So, I have to move it by 596 and I am going to subtract this by 596 and press enter. And similarly now I am going to select one, that is SM pillar 7, press F2 and I am going to call this as SM pillar 12 and I am going to even this, subtract it minus by 596, press enter, and I am also going to select, that is SM underscore pillar 8, I am going to rename this now as SM underscore pillar 13 and I am going to also move this by minus 596 and I will select the last SM pillar 9 here, press F2 and I am going to call this as SM pillar 14 and again I am going to subtract this by minus 596. And finally, we will have the other 4 pillar at the back. If you come into the stilt area, you can see from this point it is 1.47 meter placed to the bottom. I will select all the 4 now. I am going to press edit, duplicate and then I am going to just drag it and align it with this pillar. So, I will just zoom it, I will align it exactly to the compound pillar at the back here. I have to now move it forward by 1.47 meters. So, I am going to come here and along the x axis I will press plus 147 meters and press enter and see that you select all the pillars from SM pillar 1 to SM pillar 18 and its z value of all the will be set, all these pillars will be set to 0. So, if I now come into the perspective view, you can now see that all our pillars are placed in our site correctly. I want to add the right material to all my pillars. These are concrete pillars. You can create your own material and you can add it. The best way to get materials or model assets is to first try it on fab. So, I will come into content drawer and again I will click on the fab button here. Remember, you should have enabled fab plugin in the launcher to get this fab icon in the content drawer. Now, coming into fab, I will come here and I am going to type concrete and if I press enter, I will come into the price and enable free. I am just going to scroll down and I am going to use this smooth precast concrete. Click on this, let us use this material. Now, I can set the asset quality. I will choose high quality and if I click on add to project, this entire concrete material will be downloaded. You can see how it is getting downloaded and then it will be imported into your content browser. If I close fab and if I come into content drawer, in content now you have a fab folder and in mega scans you have surfaces, you have smooth preset concrete, high, and inside this you have material and texture folder and I have the material here. Right now, if I am going to select any one of the pillar here and if I drag and apply the concrete to it, you can see now that the concrete is applied only to that one single pillar. Now, I have to drag and apply the concrete to every pillar. So, instead of that, I will go to edit and I am going to undo it. I will come into content drawer and in content maps generated Satvik, we have this SM pillar. I will double click to open this and here if I come and make any modification, because I am modifying the original static mesh, in all the instances this effect will be applied. I will come into content drawer and this material name is, I will just rename this correctly so that I can assess it correctly. I am going to call this as ML, meaning material underscore pillar underscore concrete. I am now going to come here and select ml underscore pillar concrete, and once I apply it and if I save it now if you come and have a look here, some of the pillars you are not seeing the material. So, for example, select this material, it is SM underscore pillar 3, and if I come into the detail in material, this world grid material is applied to the instance. So, this is overdriving the static mesh material. So, if I reset it here, so you can see the original mesh. So, I will select all the materials which does not have this applied, and I will just reset this material so that all the pillars have the same material. So, now you can see now all our pillars are provided with this material. So, I will just reset it, because what has happened is a material has been applied at the instance level, and that is overdriving the original material. So, now if I just press S and look around, there is one pillar here. Still I will select this and I will reset it. So, now we have all the pillars ready. We are now ready for the construction. So, right now I will go into file and choose save all. Now, our pillars are ready, and our next stage of construction is to put the ceiling, that is the roof. I am going to put this roof in a different level. I will come into file, choose save current level as, and in content maps folder I am going to give it the name as apartment underscore 03 underscore ceiling, and I am going to save this file. One thing is, you can see that the site area name is appearing here as boolean. I will press F2 and I am going to call this as SM underscore site area. See, my entire site area is, the width is 12.19 meters, but in 12.19 meters we are leaving 1 meter gap on left and 1 meter gap on right. So, I have to subtract 2 meters. So, my width will be 10.19 meters. Come into Unreal, I will create a box, I will choose the output to dynamic mesh, and I will set the width to 10.19, which is 1019 centimeter. My total width is 18.28, and in this I am leaving 2.2 meters gap here. So, minus 2.20 and 1.40 here. So, minus 1.47, it is actually 14.61, and here in the depth I am going to type 1461 centimeter. Now, the height of my ceiling will be half a feet. So, in the height I am going to give it as 15.24 centimeter, and I am now going to come here and just click here and click on accept. I will come here in the transform and I will reset its position to 0, 0, 0, and I will just drag it to the top, and I will come into the top view to see it. The left and right is perfectly aligned because you have 1 meter gap here and 1 meter gap here. I am going to zoom this, and I am going to first bring this ceiling to the point of my compound pillar edge like this. See, I align it with the edge. I am going to move it along the x axis. I will come here and I am going to move it by, you can see here from the bottom edge it is moved by 2.2 meters. So, I am going to subtract here and move it by minus 220 and press enter. We have our ceiling area ready. So, now I will come into the perspective view, and this is our ceiling area. The ceiling will be applied everywhere except at the area where we are going to have the steps and the lift. You can now see this drawing where you can see that my area for staircase and lift is 3.8 meters by 4 meters, but in this 4 meters I am leaving 1 meter on this side as a gap. So, gap needed in the ceiling for staircase and the lift is 3.8 meters by 3 meters. I will come here and I will create another box with a width of 380 centimeter, depth of 300 meters, and height I leave something like 100, or I can keep anything. I will bring it here, click it, click accept, and then I am going to reset its position to 0, 0, 0, and then I will come into the front view and I am just going to move it up and move it inside this area of box. I will come into the top view here, and now I have to now first align this with the left hand end. So, I will just move this box to the left hand side here. So, I will just move it so that it just touches this point like this. I am going to move it back by 1 meter. So, along the y axis I am going to subtract this by minus 100, and this gives a 1 meter gap here. And I will come back into perspective view. I am going to first select the first box, with shift selected select box 2, come into model, boolean, and using difference a minus b, I am now going to click accept. And now if I right click and move around and show it to you, so now we have this area open for our lift and for our staircase. So, our one roof is ready. Now, I will come into the top view. I have to realign some pillars based on this opening. So, or otherwise the pillar will come right on the staircase. So, that is why when you are designing your house or the map, if you design it like this, now you can identify the mistakes. So, if I put the pillar here, the pillar will run through the staircase. So, that is why I have to now move this pillar and this pillar. I select both. I have to move it to the right. I will just move it inside like this. It has to be moved till this point, okay, because this area will be carrying the staircase. And now I have to select both these pillars and I have to move it down like this and align it with the staircase like this. And now if I come into the perspective view and see this, my ceiling is ready. I am going to select this ceiling. Right now this is a dynamic mesh. I will come into XForm and I am going to convert this into a static mesh and click apply. If you come into content drawer, content maps generated Satvik, you now have this box created as boolean. I am going to select this site area and I will delete this, and then I am going to select this. I will rename this as SM_site area. I am going to select the other boolean here, right click, rename, and I am going to call this as SM_ceiling. Then I am going to double click this, and in this case I am going to come into the material here and I am going to type here concrete, and you have this ML pillar concrete. I will apply the same concrete for this and I will save it and close it. Along the z axis, I will set its value to 0. Now, I will come into the top view, press F2. I will press F2 here and I will call this as SM_. I will come into the front view. You can see here, for the ground or the stilt 4, you have 2.4. So, I will come back here and along the z axis, I am going to move it by 240 centimeter, which is nothing but 2.4 meters. Then I am going to go to edit, duplicate, and I will come here press F2 and I am now going to call this as SM ceiling underscore first floor. Even here this I will call it as press F2 SM ceiling underscore ground floor. Select this SM ceiling underscore first floor and I have to move it by 3 meters and I am going to add plus 300 centimeter. So, I got the first floor roofing. Then again I am going to press edit duplicate. I will press F2 here and I am going to call this as SM ceiling. This is second floor and I am again going to move it by 3 meters plus 300 centimeter and again I am going to duplicate this and I am going to call this as ceiling third floor and I am going to come here and press plus 300, press enter. So, now I have all the roof of my building. So, if you come into the perspective view, now our building is ready with pillar and the roofing. See, the roofing and the pillar of our building is now ready. So, with this done, I will go into file and choose save all. We have successfully created the pillars, the roof along with the compound and the floor. So, in our next session, we are going to build the staircase and the lift. Thank you.